And testing, 1, 2, 3. Hey guys, let me know with a 1 in the comments if you are hearing me. Everything seems to be good on the audio. Let me check in the panel. Yeah, says we have an excellent connection. Things are looking positive. And yeah, I think I've gone live. Just drop a 1 in the chat if you get my audio. Everything's working out well. Yeah, everything's looking positive there. Good audio. At least let me double check. Radio. Hello, Veronica. How are you doing? Hey, Zach. Welcome. Hello, Thunderous. How are you doing? Sorry I didn't get back to you today. I was busier than expected. Um, yeah, but let's chat as soon as we can. Let's see. Just Janice. Hello, KC. Welcome. And yeah, so there's a bunch of people here. Somebody changed his name to an Arabic name, which I have no idea how to write on a keyboard. Wonder who that could be. And welcome everyone. So as you know, last week we discussed Arabic terminology, and this was an exploration of the Islamic terminology, and this was an exploration of the Islamic civilization. Yes, I know it's you, David. Yeah, I have no idea why you chose this. Jeez, I don't have an Arabic keyboard, man. It's bad enough I don't have a Polish keyboard. Um, yeah, so let's dive in, see where we get. If there are any questions about words that you are interested in, do let me know. Actually, hold on. This is going to pop up shortly, and yeah, it's something that I should have. Yeah, so I do have a list of terms that people have given me. We will stumble across some of them, but others I will keep collecting, and then as we have a chance, we will go through those, right? So at my name, so it's at Lloyd, so we can see it, and hopefully I won't miss anything, and then we can discuss those. I can do some research. So one, I have made a link available, as you will see in the chat. I've made a link available to all of the encyclopedias of Islam, right? So that's the volumes 1 to 12. Volume 13 is also linked. Hi, Dragon. Welcome. So volumes 1 to 13, check in the description. There's a link where you can download. Hey, Bob. Welcome. Welcome. That's Historical Christianity. Bob's doing some great things with the Sharia. And yeah, I think things are going to turn around in this battle to establish the truth and to demonstrate the fraudulent falsehood of Islam. So again, in the description, volumes 1 to 13 of the Encyclopedia of Islam, links available, download them, use them, research, and of course I'm always available. You guys know where to find me and chat. And yeah, Veronica, it is a great resource. So let me pop down here. Actually, maybe I'll just go to the top right tonight. Maybe I won't. I'll go top left. What the heck? So guys, I want to show you something I'm currently working on. This is a very interesting book. Well, it's a paper really. What is the gospel mentioned in the Quran? Because as you know, there are discrepancies between what the Quran says the Bible says and what the Bible says. So this is obviously leading to extreme embarrassment for Muslims. You will know that some of you will remember from my discussion on Paul, the Apostle Paul, and how Islam attacks. Hello Eva, welcome. Hey Dodzer. So you'll know from my discussion on the Apostle Paul how Muslims, actually let me find this reference because this will be very useful to you guys. Let me find this. Right, so Muslims attack the Apostle Paul. Right, they claim that obviously he altered the Bible, and I need to just move this over. Oops. Wrong thing. Darn it. Oh, here we go. I'm just going to drop this over here. So, in my discussion on Apostle Paul, the Muslims say that the Christians abandoned the jihad. Okay, because Paul had a vision. Paul told them that they had to abandon the jihad. Okay, and the reason why they say this is, okay, because apparently Christians are supposed to make jihad. right? However, look at this Quran. This is one of the very few Quran passages that explicitly mentions the Bible. Quran 9:111. Indeed, Allah has purchased from the believers their lives and their properties in exchange for that they will have paradise. They fight in the cause of Allah, jihad, so they kill and they are killed. It is a true promise binding upon him in the Torah, the Gospel, and the Quran. And we know there is no jihad in the Gospel. There is no jihad even in the Torah, because this is a strictly Islamic concept. So they had to come up with the idea that Paul abandoned the jihad. He rewrote the Bible and abandoned the jihad, because this says they will find it in there, and they will not. So this is embarrassment for them. Okay, so I'm just going to shift this back over. Right. Now let me go here. Okay. All right, so hopefully that answers that question. So I'm still busy developing that theme on how they claim that Paul corrupted the gospel. This is part of it, because now I'm researching what does the Quran actually say about the gospels, right? So let's see, what is Eva? God of Muslims, go and fight for me. God of Jews and Christians, we still are. Exactly, Eva. Well done. Yes, Allah purchases. Now, don't forget, where it says that Allah purchases their lives. Okay, I need to look into this at more depth, but I've read about this in the past. When you say the Shahada, you are basically, it's called Baya. And Baya has obviously, it's kind of a contract. No, in theory, it is where you pledge allegiance, right? However, it actually falls under a contract of sale, right? So it falls under a contract of sale. You are selling something. So when you make Shahada, when you decide to become a Muslim, right? When you give allegiance to Allah, you sell him something. What do you think that thing is that you are selling? Who buys your soul? Okay? If you look at the literature that we know, you sell your soul to the devil. Okay? But anywho, so you sell your soul, and when you go back on that, when you apostatize, right, you're breaking a contract. It's a contract of sale, right? It's a contract of sale, and thus you are guilty of reneging on a contract, and you must be punished for this. Veronica says, what do they think they know about Paul and his teaching, since they claim the New Testament is corrupted? Correct. Eva says it's not Shahada, it's Shah-ha-ha-ha. Yeah, it's laughably funny. Okay, however, let's jump into the topic of the day. So we were discussing various terms, and let's start here with adab. Okay, let's start here, and we'll go back into the subject. Hopefully this is large enough for you guys to see even on cell phones. I'll try and make this a little larger, 10% larger. Okay, yeah, hopefully this is big enough. If you guys are on mobile phones, hopefully this is as big as I can make it, quite honestly. I'll try and go a fraction bigger. Actually, I'll go to 350%. Okay. Yeah, it's freezing in Poland today. Good grief, I've had warmer days. Okay, so adab. Now I want to remind you guys, as we talk about morals equals trickery in Islam. That's very interesting, Edgar. If you can drop some more information, that would be entertaining to learn more about. So back to this, okay? Understand they're a different civilization to the West. They think completely differently, right? Now, adab, originally a habit, a practical norm of conduct, equivalent to sunnah, right? And understand here they're defined within the Encyclopaedia of Islam, volume 13, again, links in the description, that rhetoric is a science. Within the Western world, rhetoric is not considered a science, right? Rhetoric is the art of persuasion. Now, back in the day, and even now, rhetoric is often considered a form of trickery, a form of deceit, deception, right? Not necessarily honest persuasion, right? Notice that adab also has, you will find that the Encyclopedia of Islam, hello, welcome, Ivan Peter. The Encyclopedia of Islam makes constant reference to mysticism. There's a constant reference to mysticism within Islam. It never stops, right? It comes up time after time after time, right? Let me see if do I actually drop any frames? Don't think so. Okay, so this comes up time after time. It never ceases. Now, it says here, governs relations between master and disciples, and in military science, the plural form adab is a synonym of hiyal, stratagems in war. Hiyal means legal trickery as well, right? Every Arabic word has multiple meanings. Hiyal is also the main method, shall we say it's the main method of lying within Islam. It's a way that you can break any contract, any agreement, any promise, any oath, right? And adab al-jadal, in theology and law, a method of debating, which is why Muslims always want to debate you. Let's have a debate, because they have a method of debate which is based on rhetoric, but the dishonest rhetoric, right? It sounds good, but it's not true, right? Specious debate, specious reasoning, very closely linked to sophistry. So it's a method of debating in which we discussed questions that were controversial. It was not a matter of finding the truth, but of convincing the opponent, right? Which is why Muslims will always say to you, I refuted you, even if their argument is completely false, because they're following this method. It's refutation, right? Ever says, since we're an enemy of them, they consider normal debate as a war. They do not realize we want to help them. Yes, correct. It is jihad against non-believers. And wonder where George Orwell got the inspiration for his Newspeak. That is a very good question, Veronica. Look, I did mention to you, and I need to dig deep into this, but I have found, actually, you know what? I will find this as we go. Um, so the guy's name is Rudolf von Sabotendorf, and he wrote a book, von Sabotendorf, plus. Okay, so this guy, Rudolf von Sabotendorf, he wrote a book. I'll find this. So he wrote a book about the Quran, and he states that the Quran is a mystical manual that used by the scholars as a mystical manual. But I'll get into that. Let me find it so that I can talk about this. But he founded, so he was a Sufi, right? He was trained as a Sufi, then he founded the Brill Society, an occult society extremely popular in 1920s and 1930s Germany. This society was joined by people like, Adolf Hitler and others, to my knowledge, and then, of course, this society dissolved and became the Nazi Party, right? So there does seem to be a very strong connection to various occult practices and certain political movements which seem to be somehow linked to Islam. We need to look into this deeper. Okay, so let's continue. So right now I'm here. Let's see what we find here. Addad. Okay, we spoke about this. Opposites in linguistics. So these are words which have two meanings that are opposite to each other. So in Islam, it is possible to have words that have completely opposite meanings. So they can give you one word and say it means A, but it also means B, right? So these are words that have opposite meanings. The adhan, announcement, technical term, the call to design service of Friday and to the 5 daily prayers. Okay, excellent. Let's continue and see what else we can find here. Okay, ahad. Okay. Ahad is from the science of tradition, right? When they speak of the science of tradition, they're speaking of the hadith. Now, everything in Islam is a science, but understand they don't utilize the word science the way we do. When they speak of a science, they are more specifically speaking of the religious sciences, because the only true knowledge was that brought by Muhammad, right? He brought knowledge of religion, knowledge of the Quran. All other sciences are secondary and tertiary. They're not as important. So therefore, Islam is not developed as a scientific community. It is far, far behind the rest of the world, because when they mean science, they mean occult science, which is very different to the way that we view things within the Western world. I could do a show discussing how far behind Islam is in terms of the rest of the world, in terms of its scientific achievements. Uzma very welcome. Hi everyone. So let's see. Okay, so ahad means in the science of tradition of the hadith a relatively small number of transmitters, not enough to make them mutawatir. Mutawatir, of course, technically it's a tradition that Muslims are obliged, it's obligatory for them to regard as true. In fact, they must regard it as so true as if they had been there to witness it themselves. Now, of course, some of the Sahih are supposed to be mutawatir, incredibly true, right? And Muslims must believe in this. However, scholars differ over how many hadith are actually mutawatir. So the number that is given is typically less than 9, right? In fact, the scholars only agree on one whole hadith out of hundreds of thousands of hadith, right? They apparently only agree on a single one hadith as being mutawatir, right? And not more than, typically around 5, maybe not more than 9. So understand that the vast majority of hadith are not mutawatir. However, ahad hadith, if it's agreed upon by enough scholars, can actually be considered, technically speaking, sahih enough to abrogate something else. I have spoken about this in my discussions on the science of abrogation. Okay, let's have a look at the term ad. Okay, plural, uhud, joining together, a contract. Okay, so as a Quranic term, ad denotes Allah's covenant with men and his commands, the religious engagement into which the believers have entered. Now understand, Muslims fail, okay, they completely fail to recognize the covenants within the Bible. Now within the Bible there are some major contracts and minor contracts, right? Now apparently there's something like, thank you for coming here, Uzma, very good to have you, thank you. So within the Bible there are some major contracts. You know that the last covenant, of course, is the New Testament, the new covenant that Jesus brought. However, you've got certain major covenants within the Bible. Okay, you have the covenant with Noah, right? God will never again destroy the world by flood, right? That's a new covenant, right? You've got the covenant with Abraham, you have a covenant with David, you have a covenant with Jesus. Those are, to my knowledge, the 4 major covenants, right? Now, Islam has the very same concept, but they don't recognize ours. Understand? So, but this is merely sophistry, right? So they actually have the same concept, but yet they won't grant us the same. So, yeah, it's religious engagement. It's also political agreements and undertakings of believers and unbelievers towards the Prophet and amongst each other. Okay, and ordinary civil agreements and contracts. Okay, in law, now this would be in terms of the Sharia. It is restricted to political enactments. Excellent, but let's look at mysticism, right? In mysticism, ad is the covenant consisting of religious professions and vows which vary in different orders with which the dervish is introduced into the fraternity. So these are allegiances that the mystics make. When we say mystics, Islam, remember we spoke about this last week, about the mystics, about the Freemason connections of Islam and so on, but the fact that there's constant reference to mysticism within Islam, right? And of course, oddly enough, in the science of diplomatic, they even consider diplomacy a science, which is very interesting. We will constantly see the references to science within Islam. Any comments or questions from anyone? So let me continue. Okay, al-Bayt, literally the people of the house, the family of the Prophet. Okay, so you, if you are a dhimmi, you are part of the al-Dimma. Okay, so you're the people of the Dimma, right? You're a dhimmi, and you'll see different uses of the term al something, right? You'll see Muslims refer to as the Ummah and the al-Jama'ah, right? Which is, yeah, again, it's just the people of Islam, the people of the Ummah, right? Edkin mentions Freemasons, Sufis, Muslim identity. So don't forget, these Sufis claim to be a Freemasonic society. They claim to be the very first Freemasonic society, and they also claim to have started the Freemasons in the West. They first started the Freemasons in the West very early on, and then in the 14th century or something, apparently through the Templars having infiltrated and co-opted the Knights Templar, they claim to have introduced the Scottish Masons, the 33rd degree Scottish Rite, into Scotland, right? So that is a claim that is made by them. Okay, let's continue what's down here. Al-Kitab, the people of the book. Okay, those are Jews and Christians. Later on, apparently this was extended to include the Sabaeans, Zoroastrians, and in India, even idolaters. Right? Now, one of the reasons that they, of course, you know that the people of the book, when you become a dhimmi, you can either convert, you can become a dhimmi, or they kill you. Now, in India, they apparently, the Tears of Jihad, the event is called, they killed something like 18 million, at least, of the people of India, right, of the Hindus. However, they couldn't keep killing them. They also needed these people, A, to work as slaves, obviously, because it's extortion based on people's enslavement, and B, well, you can't kill everybody, but B, they needed the money, right? You need these people to work so you can make some money. So therefore they gave them the option. Al-Rai, personal opinion as opposed to the traditionists from the Al-Hadith. Very, very interesting. Okay, so this goes into the development of the Hadith, of the Sharia. I've spoken about this in my discussions on the Sharia. Okay, and the Al-Sunnah, very important. The people of the Sunnah, okay, the Sunnis, these are the Orthodox Muslims, okay. Also, you can apply the term the Al-Jamma. Now understand, Sunnis follow the Sunnah. Yet, of course, anytime you point out the Sunnah, the Sunnis abandon the Sunnah and then claim that they only follow the Quran. They become Quranists who are apostates. Very, very interesting. So he said, Lloyd Edkin says they could have killed and sold the corpses instead, but they preferred the longer way. Okay, right. Let's continue with that. Oops. And okay, this is technically where we ended the last time, although we skipped around a bit. We spoke about Allah, right? God, Allah, the unique one, the creator. Already to the pre-Islamic Arabs, Allah was one of the Meccan deities, possibly the supreme deity. We then went further into the term Ilah, which is one of the source words for Allah, right? So understand that Allah was around before Islam. Again, as you know, this Encyclopedia of Islam costs you 40 grand to buy a copy, right? It costs you like 5 grand a year just to borrow the thing, right? So let's continue now that we've covered that, unless you guys want me to go back over something. Right, let's see if there's anything here of interest. Okay. Amal, right, leads us to the word Amaliya, the practical sciences. Now they do speak of practical sciences, ethics, economics, and politics as determined by the philosophers. Okay, that's in volume 1, page 427b. So they do have some reference to practical sciences. So understand, they separate practical sciences from the sciences, which is religious sciences. This is what they mean. There's always this little sleight of mouth when they're utilizing terms. Edkin says a conflation of Alillah and Allah. Yeah, we read about that last week, but yeah. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, now this gets interesting. Arif, okay, literally one who knows, a Gnostic, right? Now, if you know the Gnostics, and I've spoken of them on my channel before, the Gnostics were the greatest threat to face the church. Islam within the Sharia, actually let me just bring up the Reliance of the Traveler, claims to explicitly be a Gnostic religion, okay? So again, if you bring up the Reliance of the Traveler and you type in the letters GNOS, so here I've got Gnosis, 18 references, Gnostic, 5 references, Gnostics, plural, 3 references, and Gnostics with an apostrophe, 1 reference. So let's start with Gnosis. Now I've done this before, but understand Gnosticism was a major threat to Christianity, to the church in its first 4 centuries. It was a major cause of heresy, and of course the Council of Nicaea was specifically to refute certain heresies, right? To establish finally the proper wording to describe the beliefs, the creed of the Christian church, right? So they speak here of the scholars stopping at the first traces of Gnosis. In other words, an Islamic scholar who is now studying the Gnosis, right, the secret knowledge, who's now studying to be a Gnostic, he goes through these rituals to try to commune with Allah, enter into Allah's throne room and become one with Allah. He then, once he first tastes this experience, he stops and thinks he's awesome, but that would be a mistake. Now they do tell us, the Islamic scholars do tell us that others claim to have attained to Gnosis and to contemplative knowledge of the divine. Others claim, okay, to have passed through spiritual stations and states and to have reached nearness to Allah. But they go on to tell us they know nothing of any of this except the words. right? So all of Zahar, thank you very much. Wow, thank you. I'm very grateful. Much appreciated. So understand that Islam is explicitly Gnostic. Many scholars speak about, well, there seems to be a link to Gnosticism and Islam. Yes, it's explicit. When you read the Islamic scholars, they'll tell you explicitly within the Sharia, right, it is Gnostic, and the scholars claim to be Gnostics. So what happens is now they say that these other scholars know nothing. However, the Islamic scholars tell us we have attained to gnosis. They have attained. The Islamic scholars have reached the gnosis, right? So this is Greek for knowledge. Thank you, John Jobo. So understand, so this is what they claim. This is what they say they've done. They've gone through the door of gnosis, right? We covered this before. They have learned what can only be comprehended through the gnosis, right? Reaching gnosis, 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 also known as marifa, right? Also known as the marifa. Gnosis, marifa continued, and so on. So that's Sufi gnosis. Okay, so we have Sufi gnosis, then we have marifa, gnosis, right? Mushahada, gnosis, one of the states of the Gnostic. Shuhud, gnosis. Annihilation, the state of annihilation, where your rational mind's destroyed, but this other mind comes through, and it then begins the process, the going down the path, piercing the veils, the 99 veils, entering to the throne room of Allah, blah, blah, blah. Gnosis and Sufism. Ah, interesting. So Gnosis and Sufism are synonymous, essentially. And we see as Sufism, Gnosis, spiritual stations, the Awliya, the friends of Allah, right? The Awliya. That would be a Sufis, and contrasted with Sufi Gnosis. Okay, there we go. So now we've got some of these references to Gnosis. Let's see, Gnostic. They speak of the spiritual station of annihilation in Gnostic vision. It's a station that they reach. The Gnostic, okay? So they're speaking of the Islamic scholars who've reached the level of those to whom the unseen is disclosed and who have Gnostic insight. The perfect knowledge. They've achieved Gnostic inspiration, the Mukashafa. Now this is a very interesting passage here. Right? This is actually useful for me to cover with you. This is about the perfection of Islamic faith. Right? So we want to learn a little bit about the structure of the Islamic culture and civilization, its religion, and so on. How does a Muslim perfect his faith? Ihsan. Okay, ihsan being faith. It says here, the perfection of faith is to adore Allah as if you see Him, and if you see Him not, He nevertheless sees you. So you're always aware of the presence of Allah, apparently. Okay. It goes on to say, a Muslim must worship in a way that fulfills its obligations, that's Islam's obligations, by observing all of its conditions and integrals. Right? So he must worship in a way that fulfills effectively all the conditions and the requirements of the Sharia. A Muslim must do this while immersed in the sea of Gnostic inspiration. Well, this is not for the lay Muslim. This is only for the scholars, right? These are for the alim. What is the difference between Iman and Ihsan? That's a good question, Veronica. Hold that thought. I will actually get to that. So right after this, we'll get into Iman and Ihsan. So the scholars must do this. They must contemplate Allah while immersed in the sea of Gnostic inspiration, the Mukashafa, until it is as if the worshipper actually beholds Allah. This being a station of contemplated spiritual vision. So they need to go through these occult practices. They must do rituals, spiritual rituals. They must worship as mentioned above, though mainly aware that Allah sees one, this being the station of vigilance. Now here's the important part. All three of these are of the perfection of faith. Ihsan. So the perfection of faith is ihsan. But the perfection required for the validity of worship is only the first. Okay, I'm going to mark that as green. So the perfection, let me just mark that as green. The perfection of faith, the perfection required for the validity of your worship is only the first. In other words, to worship in a way that fulfills the obligations of the Sharia by observing all its conditions and its requirements, while perfection in the latter senses is the mark of the elect and not possible for many. And understand, this is what marks Islam as a Gnostic religion. Okay, this is one of the hallmarks of a Gnostic religion, because this is something only possible to the elite. those with the special knowledge. Thank you, Edkin, very much. Really appreciate it. Okay. Well, yeah. So understand this is the this is what they can do. So not many, only the elite, only the scholars. So the lay Muslims are at the lowest level of knowledge within Islam, right? Perfection in the latter sense is the mark of the elect. Who's that? That's the alim. Your lay Muslim is not one of the elect. He is a basic Muslim, and he knows, relatively speaking, very little. Just find a different shade of green to use here, and that's horrible. So I will just use that. Okay. So okay. So understand. So there we've got something now that we've learned about this. Okay. So you asked about iman. Okay. So let's see if we have iman within the Sharia manual. I'm going to type IMAN. We're going to utilize that. Let this run through for a second while we find the word iman here. Let's see if we can get that. The problem is also with various words, these things are spelled differently across different books. It could be IMAAN, could be EMAAN, it could be a bunch of words. Understand? So, is there words to replace Muslim saints? Such a disgrace. Yes, well, unfortunately, the Muslim saints are Sufis. Okay? The Sufi saints are the saints. The Sufis are the saints. Okay, so Iman. So let's go here. Let's go back to this Brill. I'm going to look up Iman. Faith, Iman, Akida. Okay, Akida is something we'll have a look at as well. So let's go have a look at Iman. Okay, I'm going to skip forward till we get to the dictionary part. We'll look for I. Here we go. Okay, Veronica, this one's for you. So, Iman in theology is faith in Allah. Okay, and it's in volume 3, 1170b. Now, let me know with a comment if you want me to go to this volume and have a look at it. Okay, so Iman is faith in Allah. Okay, and what was the question again? So you asked us Iman and Ihsan. Ihsan is the perfection of faith, right? The perfection of faith. So let's see. But they also mentioned now. Thanks, Dragon. So let me see. Okay, let's actually go to this. I want to go here. I'm going to go to the Aqidah. We covered this last time. Let's have a look at the Aqidah. So there's a couple of different creeds within Islam. I haven't looked into this in great depth, but understand this is we're going to look at the Aqidah al-Tahawiyya. This is the creed of the Sunnah wal Jama'ah, okay, the people of the Sunnah. So this is the Sunni creed, right? And let's have a look, what are the basic, so just like you have the Nicene Creed, what is the basic set of beliefs that Muslims hold, okay? So the Nicene Creed is basically, we believe in one God, the Father, the Almighty, the maker of heaven and earth. The wording is very explicit because it's a refutation of the Gnostic heresies, and especially the Arian heresy at the time that was plaguing Christian faith, right? Plaguing the church, right? So we believe in one God, right? Not three, not four. The Father, the Almighty, the maker of heaven and earth, right? Not the demiurge and the monad, right? It's not that, okay? So we say about Allah's unity, believing by Allah's help that Allah is one without any partners. There's nothing like Him. There's nothing that can overwhelm Him. There is no other God than Allah. Allah is eternal without a beginning and enduring without an end. He will never perish or come to an end. Now, apparently the Quran is eternal. Now, if Allah is the only eternal thing, how can the Quran be eternal? Right? He will never perish or come to an end. Nothing happens except what He wills. No imagination can conceive of Him, and no understanding can comprehend Him, which is why it is not possible to draw Him. It's not possible to understand what He looks like. Their Aqidah does point to Christianity. That's a very good point. Well, I learned so much about the cult. I need to go for a bit. I'm about to eat. Okay, cool, Sergeant. Grinch, no worries. Okay, but thanks for coming by. And so understand, this is their conception of Allah, right? Whereas we are made in the image of God. That's a very different view. So they have a totally view. For them, God is unknowable, totally mysterious, an alien, okay, with one shin, two right hands, one hand, we don't know. He's got two sides, but they're both right-hand sides, so he's got two right-hand sides. So Allah created from the sweat of a horse, all of the above. Understand? So they don't know how to think about Allah. We know that as Christians, we are made in the image of God, imago Dei, right? Whereas they don't have a clue, so therefore Allah's nothing like them. Allah's an alien. They can't relate to him. Whereas you know that God's your hold my shin. Dude, that's funny. So understand, so we can relate to God as a father. So the circumstantial abrogated yet they're eternal. Yeah, exactly. Thunderous, very good question. So the circumstantial and the abrogated ayat are eternal. So much of the Quran is abrogated, it's cancelled. Okay, is it eternal? That's a... I understand. Islam has certain technical problems it has yet to deal with. Okay, why do they do this Gnostic meditation if nobody can conceive of him? That is true because, okay, so here's the thing. Okay, these are good questions. So within Islam, Allah is light. Allah is the perfect light. Muhammad is a manifestation of the light of Allah. The light of Muhammad, and I've done this in other shows where I've been discussing the counterfeit Jesus, right? Guys, gnosticize the like button, okay? Make jihad on the like button, as you know, beat it blue, please. Appreciate that, okay? Let people know, okay? So, so the Sufis, right, the mystics within Islam, all practice what is called light mysticism. Muhammad was made of the essence. Muhammad is made out of the essence of Allah. Allah took a piece out of himself, made Muhammad, right? Then basically with one of the creation myths of Adam, Adam was created out of the clay, but Muhammad had infused his light into the clay and animated the clay, and thus Adam was made from the light of Muhammad, from the perfect clay that Muhammad had infused with his glory. Understand? So Muhammad, there's many of these, and don't forget, Muhammad is the first thing that Allah created. So Allah took from his light, made Muhammad, then a piece of Muhammad's light was broken into pieces, piece put into Adam, piece into Abraham and Moses and Noah and Jesus, and that. So if you look at old pictures of Muhammad, you'll see that he's covered in a halo, whereas all the rest only have a little halo around their heads. So Muhammad has a much greater halo because he's the perfect man. So these scholars are trying to become like him, become the perfect man to achieve this light. So they follow a thing called light mysticism. And I have shown you last week how these Sufis call themselves the perfect Illuminati. Okay, we will get some of those words that discuss the perfection that they achieve. Okay, the insan al-kamil, which I think means as insane as a camel. Okay, in English. Okay, but that's the qutb, right? So nothing happens. He is living and never dies, and he's eternally active and never sleeps. He's totally powerful, cannot come to earth. Okay, that's God for you. He creates without his being in need to do so, and provides for his creation without effort. He causes death with no fear and restores to life without difficulty. Okay, so he has allotted for men fixed lifespans. I'm not going to read through every single claim, but I want to go to claim number 75, which is very, very useful. Covered this before, but for those who are new, this might be familiar to you. Claim number 75 of the Islamic Creed, the Aqidah. Arnold Nathaniel, welcome. When our knowledge about something is unclear, we say, Allah knows best. Does that sound familiar? Okay. Allah knows best. This is where they get that. Everything Muslims do is part of a tradition. It's all part of a tradition. So, and notice it says here, we follow the Sunnah of the Prophet and the congregation of the Muslims. We avoid deviation, differences, and divisions. Islam is one religion. Okay? So we follow the Sunnah of the Prophet. Unless you show them the Sunnah in Da'if Bukhari or Da'if Muslim, and then suddenly they don't follow any of that Sunnah nonsense because it's embarrassing and humiliating, and then of course they are Quran only, which makes them, fasid. Basically, they're corrupt. Okay, then they reject everything. But technically speaking, someone who's a Quran only, a Quranist, is an apostate. Okay, because he does not follow the Sunnah, he's deviating, and he is making up his own religion. Okay, he's dividing himself. He's outside of the circle of Islam. We love the people of justice and trustworthiness, and we hate the people of injustice and treachery. That's you. Okay. We do not accept rebellion against our Imam or those in charge and so on. So understand, all of this is their creed. Allah knows best. It's from their creed. That's what they are taught to say. It's when our knowledge about something is unclear. In other words, when we're stupid as a rock and we have no clue, when we're dumb as rocks, we have to say this. Okay, so they're just repetitively saying what they were told to say. Okay, right. So let me go back to the notes where I was at. Okay, let's go back. So where was I? I was at A. Good grief! Now I'm confused again because I lost my page. Um, okay, may as well just go back here and scroll through and see where I was. Ah, okay, the traditionalists, Allah Sunnah, the Orthodox Muslims. Again, Orthodox Muslims, not so Orthodox when you embarrass them with their own scriptures. Okay, let's continue down to here. Um, I'll try and find where I was and then move on from there. So hopefully, Allah. Okay, we've done that part. We know who this guy is. Okay, he's the guy that teaches them to say Allah knows best. Wow, went so far down without finding any. I may have missed a few words here and there. That's also possible. Skipped a few. Sainthood, Maulid, Wali. Okay, made a mistake. I made a wrong mistake. Good grief. Oh man. Clicked the wrong button, and of course I ended up in the wrong place. Okay, yeah, let's skip forward here. Yeah. Let's see if there's any questions that came in. For some reason I should have remembered the page number I was on. I just stuck with that. And okay, here we go. Done. So I'm on page 150. Okay, Amalia, the practical sciences. We spoke about that. Let me continue. So what do we have here? Arif. Okay, one who knows a Gnostic. Sorry, this is where we ended. Okay, sorry, I lost my place there for a moment. So Arif, a Gnostic. Okay, one who knows. I have got shows on this where I discuss this in more depth and detail. So let's continue and see what Arsh. Okay, Arsh. The throne of God. Allah sits on his Arsh. Um, yeah, make of that what you will. Okay, so Arsh, the throne of Allah. Understand again the light mysticism. So the light that illuminates the throne of Allah is Muhammad. Okay, so Muhammad is a being of light. So Muhammad's light illuminates the throne of Muhammad. Muhammad's light illuminates the throne room. Muhammad's light illuminates heaven itself. Okay, paradise itself. And of course, you can thank Muhammad for the light of the sun. Okay, again, I covered this with Adam Sika recently on my show on counterfeit Jesus. Okay, yes, Salah is mentally retarded, definitely not a healthy chappy. Okay, so I'll continue here. So let's come down here. So we should finish A today and probably start on B. Okay, Usul al-Din. Okay, don't forget, Islam, as I've shown before, is a deen, not a religion. Islam does not call itself a religion, a very small portion. Sunny Sleep says, he's a 240 watt bulb, yeah. And we've got here from Arsh, ironically, I was watching Adam Sika live about how the throne of Allah, where Allah took Isa unto himself. Yeah. Okay, so yeah. Usul al-Din, the bases or principles of the religion. The principles of the deen. Okay, remember I showed you guys, deen, first and foremost, does not mean religion. It means to subjugate politically, to control and to humiliate those under your control. If you want me to go back through the definition of deen, let me know. Drop a few ones in the chat. I will show you, but understand religion is one of the very later definitions of Islam. It's a very small portion, maybe 5% of the religion of Islam is a religion. So a theologian goes back to the same authorities as the jurist to justify his interpretation of dogma. Okay, so understand it's a political religion, but also it's a legal religion, and we have to ask ourselves, okay, Arnold, we'll get there. So understand that it's a Islam is a system of law, system of politics. Okay, hello Josie Wales, how are you doing? Allah is physically retarded too. He's got a blue, yeah. So understand that you don't have Islamic priests. You have lawyers. They're clerics. At best, they're clerics, but when we say cleric, we don't mean it the way we would a priest. We mean it the way like a clerk who works in a administration. Okay, it's rules, regulation. That's what they're doing. So let me go back here. Okay, I'm just going to bring up the term deen. Okay, so if you have a chance, do watch the show again afterwards, repeat it, and come back to the sections that are most helpful to you. So this is from the Lisan al-Arab. It's the most detailed of the Islamic dictionaries, 20 volumes, written a long time ago. Deen, its meaning and scope, because you'll notice Muslims call Islam a deen. The scholars call Islam a deen. It's actually, we use the term religion, and they've used it as well as a convenience, but in fact, it is not a religion. There are 4 meanings for deen. The first meaning is to subjugation or dominance, administration, administrative or legislative authority. So it's a legal system, a political system, an administrative system, civic control. To put pressure to be obedient, or using power to enslave or make one obedient. I subjugated them, so they obeyed me. Okay, the word dayan is used to indicate a person who dominates and rules over a state. Dayan from deen. The second meaning is obedience and bondage, subordination, domination by someone, and bearing humiliation under the subjugation and power of others. In other words, to dominate and enslave others, right? And deen does not mean religion, it means obedience, right? Obedience to the rules, the regulations. And finally, the third meaning is rules, regulations, ideology, doctrine, custom, tradition, finally, or religion. Finally. Okay? So yes, Marek, a large percentage of Islam is a totalitarian regime. That defines itself as a totalitarian regime. Okay? That's baked into the definition of what Islam is. I hope that answers your question. All right? So, okay. Hello, Nicole. Welcome. Okay, so now, usul al-fiqh, okay, the principles or the roots of the sources of legal knowledge. The Quran, the Sunnah, the consensus, and analogy. The major one is the ijma, the consensus, right? Don't forget the Quran, you can throw away. It's toilet paper to them today, right? Maybe not your lay Muslim, but your scholars, they don't need it anymore. They've extracted what they've needed. They've extracted what they need from the Sunnah. Because don't forget, the Quran's abrogated. Newer verses abrogate older verses. The Sharia, the Hadith, newer Hadith abrogate older Hadith. Okay? Hadith abrogate themselves as well. Newer Hadith abrogate older Quran verses. Okay? And newer Quran verses abrogate older Hadith. So there's a relationship with them abrogating each other, and there's at least one more kind of abrogation. Okay, so you've got these 4 different forms, plus there's at least another, okay, that I know of. So understand that the Quran is not the most important. To sort out this whole mess, right, what they've created is the consensus. Okay, they utilized analogy as a method of reasoning to apply the law, okay, to think what it means, to interpret it. And then, of course, they created the ijma, the consensus, and that is found in the Sharia and the fiqh, okay. So the consensus, the ijma of scholars of the 5 schools of thought, correct. Okay, that would be the Hanafi, Hanbali, Shafi, Maliki, and then of course the Sunnis actually do recognize the Jafari school of the Shia, oddly enough. Okay, so Aslam Taslim is the basic tenet of Islam. That's obedience, as I recall. So that is the solution to Islam. Forge a hadith that abrogates the whole thing. Yes, yes, yes. That may well be the case. Okay, not Salat, not Hajj, but Shahada. So Paul Williams. Okay, so Usul al-Hadith, the principles of Hadith. Now this is interesting. The disparate disciplines, the mastery of which distinguished a true scholar of Hadith from a mere transmitter. So understand the Sharia, if you read in the Reliance, it will tell us today that there are no more muhadith. A muhadith, like you had the mujtahids, who are the scholars of the law, right? The jurists who understand the law. The major jurists are all gone. From the 1300s, there's no more of them. And the muhadith, there are no longer any masters of hadith. The final interpretations are done. There is no new interpretation because nobody today, nobody alive for a very long time, hundreds of years, meets the criteria for a master who can interpret hadith. There are no more muhadith. They have to rely on the interpreters of the hadith. Now, of course, what few people know is, right, that there are, just like you have the tafsir of the Quran, you have the tafsir of the hadith. The most famous of those is Asqalani's Fath al-Bari, right? Okay, so do you guys remember the validity of the hadith, like the levels and the validity? I've covered that before. If you want me to do that, let me know. Just drop a 1 in the chat. Okay, so any questions? Okay, right. So, okay, interesting. The term Islami was a term reserved for former Jews when they invaded Spain. Now, people complain about that the Christians, the Catholic Church or whatever, forced Jews to convert, which was wrong, right? But of course, Islam did the same, and they called them Islami, right? Okay, let's continue. So now I'm on page 163, 16. Oh, wow, thank you. Hey, someone subscribed. Rational Phobia. Welcome. Okay, so we've got this. Let's go down here to the next page. And Athar. Ah, interesting. So let's have a look at this term. I'm going to try and zoom in a little bit more. It's very hard to, because the page moves around a bit. I'm just going to bring this back to 360. See if that fits. Okay. Athar. A trace, as a technical term, it denotes a relic of the Prophet. His hair, teeth, his signature. Thought he can't sign. Maybe he made an X. How, I don't know. Okay. Utensils alleged to have belonged to him, and especially impressions of his footprints. Oh, that's very interesting. read up on the footprints of the Prophet. That's a fascinating story. Okay, there's some interesting little stuff there. In the science of tradition, that's the hadith, athar refers to tradition from the companions or successors, but is sometimes used of traditions from the Prophet. Notice here again the idea of mysticism within Islam. In astrology, athar is used as a technical term in the theory of causality with reference to the influence of the stars, and in Islam, the stars are considered as higher beings possessing a soul. Bet you didn't know that. Any comments on that point? So, in astrology, athar is used as a technical term in the theory of causality with reference to the influence of the stars, right? Considered as higher beings possessing a soul. Did you know the stars have souls? They're higher beings? Well, now you do. Islam for the win. And so we have a question here from 2012 STN. Hi Lloyd, when will you dialogue with a Muslim about these things if they won't avoid you? They always avoid me. Look, I've shown earlier that debate, they have a specific method of debate, which is a wastage of time, right? I've invited dozens of Muslims. You guys have seen it live in public. They've agreed and then failed to give me their contact info, failed to come on time, etc. So I simply say, look, let's read the Sharia together. Now, it's illegal. It is flat out illegal for them to do this. They cannot. They absolutely cannot. Right? It's treason. Right? So also, they're not allowed to even know the Sharia. They're not allowed to know. The Imams are not allowed to teach it to them because it will create doubt. Too much knowledge will create doubt. That's within the Sharia itself. In fact, I can go to that and show you that and we can discuss it. So no, they will not meet with me because I'm not interested in debate. I just want to say, look, let's read the law. Let's go read the law of apostasy, ridda. Do they kill you or not? What's in the Sharia? Let's go read the Sharia, and it says that unambiguously. There's no doubt about it. It's death. Okay? So understand they won't, because they know they're going to lose. They know at the end of the day what's in there. They know what's going to happen if they do this. Okay? And they can't, because they will be embarrassing Islam, and that would be the crime of slander, and that would also be very, very wrong of them. So let me see, there's a few comments here. Okay, Veronica, tell me what the entries are in your cycle, and I'll tell you what the relation's about. So, yeah, are there higher beings without a soul? Yeah, I have no idea, Veronica. Look, seriously, some of this stuff, I'm like, you look at it and you're like, huh? It's like the smartest community is like, huh? Like, seriously? What about going through Asbab al-Nuzul or Reasons for Revelation someday? Yeah, I actually don't know much about that. Adam Seeker is probably the guy to ask about that. He's had more training than me on that. I'd have to look into that. But understand, the Sharia at the end of the day is over everything, okay? The Sharia supersedes everything. The Sharia and the fiqh supersede everything. It is the amalgamation of everything, the distillation of everything. If it's in the Sharia, if it's in the fiqh, it's still valid. If it's not, forget about it. It's a waste of your time. Okay? And from Suriname, wow, it's a long way away. Okay, jinn, angels, demons, talking ants, flying carpets. Well, jinn are people of flame, right? Okay, so yeah, let me... the jahiliya. Like, it depends how you want to pronounce this. That's also a term you've got to bear in mind. So let me go from here and see if we can finish A today, just to finish there. Okay, this is interesting. Awal, meaning first. In philosophy, awal was brought into Muslim thought by the Arab translators of Aristotle and Plotinus. Now, I've made Plotinus in red for a reason. This is to indicate either the first being or the first created. Now, Muhammad is awal. He's the very first creation of Allah. Except the Quran is the first creation of Allah. Except, I don't know, you tell me. 77 Metaphysics joined. Welcome. Welcome to the channel. So, yeah, guys, at the moment on my channel, only subscribers can comment. 777 Metaphysics, welcome. Only subscribers can comment on the channel, and you have to be a subscriber for half an hour before you can comment. Okay, so, right. So what we have is Plotinus. Now, why is Plotinus important? This guy here. So Muslims have stolen lots of concepts, plagiarized concepts from the Jews, from the Zoroastrians, from the Christians. And Plotinus was a pagan, okay? Plotinus was a pagan, and he had a concept, and I've shown this again in my discussion on Islam and occultism and Gnosticism especially. But I've shown that Plotinus was a pagan who had a concept of the supreme being, God, which was very different to that of the Christian God, of Yahweh. However, it's almost synonymous, almost identical to the later Allah. So they've stolen. Plotinus comes up a handful of times, which is very interesting. It shows that the Muslims were stealing ideas from Plotinus and then incorporating them into Islam. There's a very clear link there. So let me see. So a man-written compendium on how to interpret Islam is more important than what is considered the word of Allah. That is the case, Veronica. Okay? Doesn't shed a good light on Allah's communication skills. Allah is terrible at communication. David Wood is correct on that point, at the least. Let me actually go into this. Let me actually talk about this, okay? So I will end off sort of with that point. So let me actually go into that discussion. So this, guys, is the reliance. So I will end off and explain to you how important the scholars are, okay, within the Sharia, within the fiqh, right? This is the reliance of the traveler. This is, again, the most common of the Islamic law manuals in the world, okay? It's the most bought, the most sold, the easiest to read. It has a little bit of everything, which makes it really, really good. The other books, the other fiqh books, are very complex, much more so, much more detailed in many cases, not often as clear, okay? And understand there is a tactic that they do use where, look, the scholars who translate these things will on occasion edit things. They will add a sentence, add a few sentences to whitewash things. They'll remove something, they'll fail to translate something, they'll leave something out. And in some cases, they will make, and this is a tactic which is well known to the scholars of the Sharia, they will introduce deliberate errors. The scholars will know what the error is, you won't. Okay? So be careful. You've got to really read through a bunch of this stuff to start to pick these things up. Okay? So understand this book has certification from a number of major organizations, including a certification as being authentically orthodox Sunni practice from Al-Azhar. And this is the important section. So this is all of the knowledge of the Quran, the Hadith, the Sunnah, the Asbab al-Nuzul, you name it, the Shar, the Sirah, the works, every single thing in Islam condensed, okay, distilled, and now you've got the Sharia, and everything is arranged neatly by topic. You can see here, marriage, you've got nearly 50 pages, 48 pages of marriage law. Divorce law, you've got a bunch of pages of divorce law. Okay, commanding the right, forbidding the wrong. You've got, okay, jihad falls under book O, justice. Trade, the pilgrimage, fasting, the prayer. Here you go. Prayer takes up 119 pages within Islam. Very, very important to them. Purification takes up 52 pages. Okay? So understand, they discuss a whole bunch of things here, and the very first thing they speak of is a sacred knowledge, the gnosis. Right? Understand the gnosis. Hi, Bruce 6. So the gnosis, right, is the very first thing within Islam because it is secret knowledge, sacred knowledge. And then we have the validity of following qualified scholarship. Page 15. I'm just going to scroll through. Okay, let me go back here. Okay. Just briefly, it says here the four Sunni schools of Islamic law, the Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi, and Hanbali, are identical in approximately 75% of their legal conclusions. The remaining questions are just variances within a single family. So the four schools are one family. They're not four separate religions, they're one family. They agree. The things they disagree on, look, they've agreed to agree on at least 75% of Islam. Where they disagree, those are minor issues that do not affect doctrine. Those are minor cosmetic issues. Okay? And it says there are different viewpoints, sometimes even in a single school. Okay? So now, The Reliance of the Traveller is one of the finest and most reliable short works in Shafi jurisprudence, a school with perhaps fewer scholarly differences on rulings than others because its main resource is the recension of Imam Nawawi. Right? He upgraded the work of previous generations in terms of the authenticity and application of hadith evidence. So understand the hadith supersede the Quran in many cases. Okay? Each school does not merely comprise the work of a single imam. A large collectivity of scholars whose research in sacred law and its ancillary disciplines has been characterized by considerable division of labor and specialization over a long period of time. So no one scholar knows everything except for the four imams. They are the mujtahids mutlaq, the absolute scholars. So Hanafi, Hanbali, Maliki and Shafi are the perfect scholars. They cannot make a mistake. Okay? Now, Islam is a unified system of human life. It's not just a religion. It controls everything. Okay, it's a complete civilization, right? A total replacement of Western civilization. The classic texts have been checked and refined by a large number of scholars, okay? And the difference is manifest. There is no single work from any of the schools that has everything. So no one Sharia manual has everything. That's why you need to have many, many. So your schools each have their major scholars, and you have minor and lesser scholars who write minor and lesser opinions in minor and lesser Sharia manuals. But the best of those opinions are collected into the 2 or 3 top Sharia manuals for that school. Okay? Yes, definitely sunny sleep, certainly. Okay, so understand, and then the best of those have been compiled into books like The Reliance of the Traveller that we're looking at right now. So understand, Umdat al-Salik is a user's guide to sacred law. Okay? It covers the issues from personal ethics and character to Islamic spirituality and the tenets of faith. Okay? And notice, Muslims will always tell you, lay Muslims, right, the most ignorant, the lowest level of Islamic knowledge, will tell you the Sufis are not good Muslims. This is not true. I mean, look, man, everybody's not a real Muslim, right? But the Sufis are of the strictest observance of the sacred law. To be a Sufi, you must have incredibly good knowledge of the sacred law and must be incredibly strict in your observance. Okay? So, let's continue. The primary authors often state the ruling. Okay, that's not that important. Okay, so then these must be interpreted. So you've got these rulings within the Sharia, and then there'll be the sheikhs and the imams will do some interpretation. That's the fiqh, application to your circumstance. If the exact ruling doesn't cover your personal specific situation. Okay, so let me continue, and then we'll talk about how important the scholars are, so you can see that. Okay. Okay, so this guy says here, the untranslatability of the Holy Quran is fully acknowledged by the translator. Fantastic, the Quran can't be translated. It's a magic book. I'm just going to go to one of these, what they call warrants of authenticity. This is from Al-Azhar. This is the #1 Islamic madrasa, Islamic seminary, educational school where they teach imams in the world. Okay? Al-Azhar Islamic Research Academy says, we certify that the above mentioned translation, this one, that I'll be reading now, corresponds to the Arabic original and conforms to the practice and faith of the Orthodox Sunni community. The Al-Sunnah Al-Jama'ah, there is no objection to printing and circulating it. So this book is authentic, okay? Al-Azhar Research Academy, this is their warrant of authenticity. So let's go on. Knowledge of good and bad. So I'm going to go through a section of, for the next little while, I'm going to go through a section on why and how important the scholars are. And believe me, the scholars are incredibly important. Okay, one is either not a Sufi or a full Sufi, yeah, and they make a big deal about being full Sufis, Erkan, within the text of the Reliance. Okay, so let me see if I missed any questions or comments. Just at Lloyd me if you want to say something. All right. Hey Nathaniel, welcome. So hadith evidence, Quranic evidence, the meaning of good and bad, communally obligatory knowledge, religious sciences. Understand, science in Islam means religious sciences. They don't mean science the way you mean science. Understand, that's something completely different. So let's have a look here. Let's have a quick read through some of this, and I'll. The mind is unable to know the rule of Allah about the acts of those morally responsible except by the means of his messengers and inspired books. So your mind is too dull to understand what is meant unless you have Allah's messengers. Okay, well, fair enough, fair enough. Okay, so you need the prophets, you need the guides of the prophets and so on who came to interpret it. Okay, fine and well. Okay, and his inspired books. Now, however, here's what these guides, your Muslim imams, will teach the basic Muslim. Veronica says the Al Azhar certificate says this is the complete orthodox teaching of Islam, and then they leave out critical parts: slavery, sex with children, so that correct, but also so that their own people can't read it. Don't forget, it's compulsory, it's obligatory. We'll see this for them to lie to their own. The imams have to lie to their own as well. Okay. It cannot be said that an act which the mind deems good is good in the eyes of Allah. What they're saying is you cannot trust your conscience. Okay? An action which your mind and your soul, your spirit, your conscience says is good, you cannot believe that it is necessarily good in the eyes of Allah. That you have to do it, that its performance is called for, or that you'll be rewarded. They are told to distrust their conscience. Understand? That still small voice inside you that tells you about good and evil, right and wrong, they're told to ignore that they can't trust it. Or that whatever the mind feels to be bad is thus bad in the eyes of Allah. They are taught to completely distrust their conscience. So when their conscience says that's wrong, like, like diddling little girls, if they feel that's bad, that's wrong, they're told, you can't assume that's bad because your mind might tell you your mind is wrong. And you can't necessarily say that you should not do it, non-performance, or that you will be punished. It says the basic premise of this school of thought is that the good, okay, the morally responsible is when a Muslim turns 12, basically around 12, he becomes morally responsible. He becomes an adult, he becomes responsible for his action, and he can be punished. Understand? When you're less than that, you are too young, you cannot be punished, you're not considered morally responsible. Okay? Yeah, exactly. Al-Azhar endorses it. Muslims can't deny it. Okay? So understand, it says here that the good, okay, what is considered good of the acts of Muslims, the morally responsible, is what Allah, and notice Allah is synonymous with his messenger, the lawgiver. So understand what the lawgiver, and they say here, synonymous with Allah or Muhammad. They are the same. As far as the Sharia is concerned, Muhammad is Allah and Allah is Muhammad. They are considered the lawgiver. They are synonymous. They are the same. This is shirk. This is flat out shirk. Okay? Understand, but the good of the acts of those responsible, okay, is what the lawgiver has indicated is good by permitting it or asking it to be done. So if Muhammad did it, if Muhammad asked for it to be done, if Muhammad allowed others to do it, it is good. If Muhammad allowed his men to rape women, that is good. Understand? Muhammad is that example. That's what this means. And the bad is what the lawgiver has indicated is bad by asking it not to be done. Whatever is forbidden by Allah, forbidden by Muhammad, this shouldn't be done. The good is not what your reason considers good, nor is bad what your reason, your heart, your conscience, your soul considers bad. Good and bad, according to the Sharia, is the sacred law, not reason. I hope that makes it clear, okay? Obey Muhammad, obey Allah, do what you're told, don't follow your conscience. David says, I feel sorry for Muslims struggle between the Quran versus Ijma, where the Quran says good is evil and evil is good. Ijma says good is good, bad is bad. How they are supposed to know except follow Sunnah of Mo? Yeah. Well, the Sunnah of Momo really has been interpreted within the Sharia and the Fiqh. So that's the final example. The Ijma is the most, what you see here. This Sharia is the final interpretation of everything. It's the final example. It supersedes the Quran. Okay? No one is rewarded for doing something or punished for refraining from or doing something until he knows by means of Allah's messengers what he is obliged to do or obliged to refrain from. Stabbing people on the bridge in London, That's good because he's told by Allah's messenger that this is good. That's how you know, because they will tell you what is good. It's not part of your conscience. Okay, let's continue. Let me see if there's anything down here that we need to know. Okay, now this is important. So now we're going to go into the section where I discuss how the scholars are the inheritors. So they have a concept within Islam where you have the messengers, and then once the messenger's gone, you need a regent. Okay, the scholars are the regents of Muhammad. Muhammad is gone; he's dead, right? Kicked the bucket, died, stank, got buried. Okay, in that order. And who takes over his authority? Well, the scholars. So let's have a look. Have you consulted a scholar? Yes, I have. We're going to right now. The superiority of sacred knowledge over devotions. Now, this is your 5 pillars, okay? The 5 pillars, the devotions. So the scholars, the alim, are the people of knowledge, okay? Alim, someone with knowledge, person of knowledge. Ulama, the people of knowledge. Sacred knowledge, right? Secret knowledge, the gnosis, right? The superiority of sacred knowledge over devotions. Now, Wawi says, say, are those who know and those who do not know equal? No, they're not. That's the Quran 39:9. So those who know are the alim, the scholars, okay? And let's have a look. The Prophet said, whoever Allah wishes well, he gives knowledge of religion. However, unfortunately, the Muslims, lay Muslims, are not allowed to have knowledge. They are required to believe without knowledge. Okay? They are told what to think. They must believe this without knowledge. We'll come to that. So therefore, Allah does not wish them well because he does not give them knowledge of religion. He only gives them knowledge of his little play on words here. As you know, Islam is divided into Sharia, the law, the rules you follow, and you shut up and you follow the rules, and the Haqiqah, which is the religious side, the occult, mystical side. And the practice of the religion of Islam is for a very select few, a handful of scholars will practice religious devotions, and that is what they do as fard kifaya on behalf of the Islamic community. They are the ones who practice the religion, they do religious devotions to Allah on behalf of the whole community. The rest of the community must be managed, as you saw within the definition of deen, and they must just follow the rules and shut the hell up. Okay? So that's what they really mean with. That's the code that's buried here. Whoever Allah wishes well, he gives knowledge of religion. And notice the superiority, and this is Muhammad saying, the superiority of the learned Muslim, that's the scholar, over the devotee, that's the twat, sorry, excuse my French, in the comments section. Okay? The scholar, the superiority of the learned scholar over the lay Muslim is as my superiority over the least of you. So according to this hadith, the scholar in Islam is as superior over the lay Muslim as Muhammad is over the lay Muslim. Basically, as Jesus is over you. They are the inheritors of Muhammad's authority and knowledge. Okay? They are the ones who decoded Muhammad's message. They are the final understanders and appliers of his message. Okay, so gnosis, always a good sign. Yeah, terrible sign. Sacred knowledge abrogates devotion, the 5 pillars of Islam. Correct. That is so, Debit. Correct. Correctly understood. Okay, so understand the lay Muslim is as inferior to the scholar as he is to Muhammad himself. And I'll continue here, so we'll have a look at this. This continues. The superiority of the learned Muslim over the devotee is like the superiority of the moon over all the stars that have souls, right? Just so you know. The learned are the heirs of the prophets. So when they say the learned, they mean the scholars. Okay, those imams and sheikhs, okay, are the heirs of the prophets. So the scholars are the heirs of, well, you know, they mostly steal from the biblical prophets, right? And the prophets have not bequeathed dinar, money, okay, but have only left the sacred knowledge or the secret knowledge. And whoever takes this has taken an enormous share. Yes, David, trust me, pardon me, excuse me there. There is a lot more to Islam than you're aware of. Understand, there are aspects to Islam that you are not aware of, and I'm only starting to speak about it now because I've started to study and I have some understanding. But Islam is way worse than you realize, and there's a lot more to it than you've been told. The standard Islamic narrative, you know, it's got holes in it. No, it's false. It's 100% false. Islam is not what you think it is. Understand, it is not what you think it is. It's much, much worse. So understand, let's continue. Let's finish this section. Notice this is an extremely Gnostic perspective. According to Gnosticism, Only matter is good. Sorry, only spirit is good. Matter is evil because there was a good God called the monad, the perfect God, pure spirit. Okay? And he created a perfect spiritual universe. And then, of course, a bad God, an evil God, a very low level God, of which humans are supposedly an even higher level, called Yahweh, right? The demiurge, supposedly, right? He created the world, the universe, matter. Matter is dirty, matter is evil, okay? And we are souls trapped inside dirty matter bodies, and we need to escape from our these fleshy prisons, escape through the veils, like the Gnostic scholars do, the Islamic scholars do, to commune and take our souls back to this supposed paradise of spirit. Now, this explains also why Allah cannot come to earth, because Allah is pure spirit, and if he comes to earth, he will become najis, he will become filthy, dirty. Allah is spirit, he cannot come to earth. Understand? This is a Gnostic concept. Why do you think Allah can't come to earth? Because Allah is spirit. He cannot come to the earth of matter. And it says here, according to the Sharia, the world and what is in it are accursed, except for remembrance of Allah, that which Allah loves, and someone with the gnosis, or someone learning the gnosis, the Gnostics. Understand, the world and everything that is in it is cursed. So understand, this is an entirely Gnostic concept. Islam is based on this Gnostic concept. Okay? And that's why Jesus, they always speak about Jesus as filthy, he's najis. Okay? He was in Mary's womb, he was between filth and excrement and urine and blood, which are all filthy in Islam. And because he was not only in matter, he was filthy, because a God would be pure. That's why Allah is pure. He cannot be conceived of in material terms. Understand? I hope you see this connection with the Gnosis here. Being a military commander violently. So let's see. As a Muslim, you have the choice between not even trying to understand Islam, apostasy, and psychiatric ward. Yeah. Let me continue here. Okay. So, teaching sacred knowledge for a brief time is better than spending a night in prayer. Okay. Well, see, this is so the scholars, when they teach this stuff, get more than your lay Muslim does. Scholars are the heirs of the prophets, okay? While devotees, that's the Muslim who knows nothing, who's embarrassing Islam and himself in the comment section, are not characterized as such, okay? Sacred knowledge, meaning the knowledge we are discussing, is a communal obligation. It's fard al-kifaya. This doesn't mean that everybody must know it. That's fard al-ain, okay? Like the prayer is fard al-ain. It's a personal obligation or a universal obligation. Fard al-kifaya means that someone within the group, a few within the group, need to do it because somebody has to. That small minority. Okay? The communal obligation is superior to the personal obligation. So the personal obligation are the 5 daily prayers that your average Muslim does, right? And the person performing it fulfills the need of the Islamic nation and lifts the obligation from it. Okay? So as long as these elite scholars, okay, as long as they do the correct religious observances, and you don't know what they are, no one does, okay? As long as they do it, right, whatever these secret ceremonies are that they do, the rest of the Muslim community must just follow the Sharia, shut their mouth, go to mosque, and that's it. The obligation of the individual is restricted to himself. He is not doing something that is, understand, he's simply just following the rules. Let's continue, okay? And let me see, let me just continue past this on page 25. Okay, so I'm going to skip 25. Let's go here. Okay, so seeking knowledge is an obligation upon every Muslim. Excellent. However, don't take that as gospel. So the meaning of this hadith, and it does tell us, though the hadith itself is da'if, it is true. So da'if hadith are true. I will stop in 10 minutes, okay? The basic obligation of Islam, okay, is to believe everything brought by the messenger with absolute conviction, free of any doubt. This is the basic obligation of every lay Muslim, okay, that the lay Muslim must believe everything brought by Muhammad as interpreted by the scholars, okay, as given to him by the scholars, by the imams in the mosques, with absolute conviction, free of doubt. Whoever does this is not obliged to learn the evidence. Understand? He must have belief free of evidence. Okay? So notice the Prophet did not require of anyone anything but what we have just mentioned. Okay, the Prophet did not require of anyone anything. Muhammad required belief without evidence. Understand? So what befits the common people, what is good for the lay Muslim, and the vast majority of those learning or possessing sacred knowledge, so your low-level imams who think they know, the low level, they're not the smartest ones, right? They're the low-level guys. So what befits the common people and the vast majority of those learning or possessing sacred knowledge is to refrain from discussing the subtleties of Islamic theology, because if they do, corruption, difficult to eliminate, will find its way into their basic religious convictions. So in other words, knowledge of Islam will make Muslims doubt, and doubt must be avoided at all costs. It is fitter for them to confine themselves to contentment with the above-mentioned absolute certainty without knowledge. So yeah, I think I'll probably just pause here and see if there's anything interesting here. Okay, now I'll pause there. That's enough for now. Okay. So you see, also it mentions, final point, there were these heretical scholastic theology, heretics, that put rationalistic theories ahead of the Quran and Sunnah. So understand, rationality must never be put ahead of the Quran and the Sunnah. Okay? Understand, rationality must never be put ahead of the Quran and Sunnah. Nicholas Paulson, thank you very much. I'm really grateful. I'll try and fix the Revolut link. Thank you very much. I'm really sorry about that. I will fix that. Thanks for letting me know. I didn't realize it was broken. I thought it was working. Okay, so I will go back and fix that. Okay, so guys, I will call this here, but understand that Muslims are to believe with absolute certainty without knowledge. They're not obliged to learn evidence. Okay, they have to have conviction without doubt, without evidence. Okay, because evidence will lead to corruption, because doubt will make its way into their minds. I'll pause there. So what have you guys learned today? Anything, what was the most important, the most useful to you today? And let's see where we ended. We ended here under awal. And next time, okay, I'll finish with one more of these. Ayah, plural ayat. So a verse, okay? So it says here, sign, token, miracle, a verse of the Quran, but it's a miracle of the Prophet. So a verse of the Quran is a miracle of the Prophet. Okay? As opposed to the miracle of God's friends or the saints. Who are the friends of God? The friends of Allah? The awliya. Who are the awliya? The Sufis. Okay? Who are the saints in Islam? The Sufis. Who makes miracles? The Sufis. Okay? And notice Ayatollah, like the Ayatollahs in Iran, are the miraculous sign of Allah. Okay, used by the 12 Shias, indicating one at the top of the hierarchy amongst the elite of the great mujtahids. Okay, stars have souls in Islam? Yes, they do. Let me see this whole link to Revolut. Oh my gosh, I see what I did. It's just the HTTPS comes up twice. That's why the first HTTPS has to be removed. The first HTTPS : my bad. I have no idea how I made that mistake. That is a wrong mistake. I will have to go and fix it. Okay, guys, so now you know what an ayah is. It's a token, a miracle. It's a gift from Allah. Thunderer says, well done again, Lloyd. Well, thank you. I learned that stars can talk, and we don't just mean Frank Sinatra. Yeah, we'll speak this week. Nicholas, yeah, I know when I'm lazy. Okay, yeah, true. I made a wrong mistake there. My bad. So that's why Arab Muslims call the non-Arab Muslims do the dirty works. And what does Islam teach where conscience and reason come from? So it's apparently not given by Allah. Your reason is false. Your reason is wrong, Veronica. Your reason is wrong. Your reasoning, your conscience is wrong. You need to be told by the Imam, no, don't follow your conscience. Do what I tell you. This is right, that's wrong, no matter what you think is right and wrong. Understand? Okay? They tell you to not follow your reason, but to believe what you're told. Nathaniel says, Brother Lloyd, I wonder if the practice of dhikr, saying inshallah, has Gnostic origins. I would say yes. Okay? Because you're doing these mantras, you're doing these repetitive mantras to introduce these, or to induce these altered states, to pierce the veil and all this nonsense, and yes, definitely. I don't know what all the practices are, but certainly, yeah, I'd say that much. Arnold Nathaniel says, thanks so much. God bless you. You too. Thank you. So, yeah, please come back to watch. And um, Al Najrani says, I'm still not a shock regarding our sacred knowledge over the five pillars of Islam and the superiority favoritism to Allah to Sufis over devotees. Well, just the Imams, just the ulama, the alims, right? Yeah, understand the five pillars. Notice that the Sharia goes over the five pillars. Understand, all of this supersedes the Quran. Like, you can throw that book away. I promise you, get rid of it. It's a waste of your time. It's a distraction. Remember, because it's the lowest, the Quran represents the lowest level of knowledge in Islam. And if a lay Muslim can read it, it means that it's not going to give him doubt. It means that it's, remember, he's only allowed legally to access the absolute lowest level of knowledge within Islam. We'll talk about this more, okay, where the scholars are required to lie to their flock. Okay, the scholars, that's when you get into the section on lying, and they are not allowed to reveal the secrets to them. Not allowed to. Okay, but so if the Quran is available to a lay Muslim, it means that the Quran is a waste of time. It's so basic. It's the lowest level of knowledge. They're not allowed the higher levels of knowledge. Okay, and that's what I'm busy unpacking for you guys. Okay, so let me see. Nicholas says knowledge gathered today. It's not Allah knows best, but rather Imam knows best. Correct. Correct. Understand, the Imams have replaced Allah and Muhammad for all practical purposes. Okay, they are as far above the lay Muslim as Muhammad is above the lay Muslim, and they're the ones who are the regents of Allah and Muhammad. They're the ones who are the representatives, according to the Deen, who are doing the regulating of life on earth. Right? Five pillars of Islam is nothing but outside coffin mirage mirror. Yes, yes. Islam is nothing like you think it is. It's nothing like you think it is. That whole standard narrative, it's a lie. You've been fooled. Understand? Forget it. Yeah, guys. So I will end here. I think it's probably time to call it a night. Thank you very much, guys. Um, yeah, don't forget. This is a rejection of everything in Christianity. It's a rejection of everything logos. Right? Um, any last questions or comments or points before I finish? Let me see if there's anything here. Oh, interesting. Akash, a system according to which the Taliban, the students of sacred knowledge. The Taliban, the students of sacred knowledge. Okay, the students of what? The sacred knowledge. What's the sacred knowledge? The Gnosis, Gnosticism. The students of North Africa use the numerical value of letters for certain magical operations. When you read through this Encyclopedia of Islam, good grief, the amount of magic you come across is crazy. Okay? Seriously, mysticism and magic, occult practices constantly. In mysticism, used to indicate the super existence of Allah's deepest essence. It's all mystical practices, all of it. So guys, yeah, Josie Wales saying a prayer for each and every person in this chat. Well, thank you. Dragon says, for simple Muslims enough, Quran was lost in Battle of Imam and eaten by a goat, burned by Uthman, thrown in the Nile River, but still perfectly preserved. Yeah, crazy stuff, right? So guys, yeah, thanks. Hopefully I'll be on with, I wasn't on with Adam on Thursday. He wasn't able to make it. Hopefully this week. Nicholas, is it okay if we call ourselves Lloyd's Talibans when we watch the stream? Well, as long as you make jihad in the like button, I'd appreciate that. And yeah, the students, yeah, look, I'm trying to teach you guys as much as I can to understand Islam in a whole different way. Yeah, but awesome point. Yes, you can. Lloyd's Talibans, exactly. Um, yeah, guys. So, again, mystical terms, pre-rational, post-rational. It's just mysticism everywhere. So, guys, hopefully that was educational. Let me know in the chat, in the comments, what was most entertaining, most interesting, most useful, what you've learned the most. Thunderous, thanks for stopping by. Let's chat. I need to get Thunderous on the channel, guys. He and I have not been able to connect. I've had a very busy 2 weeks, luckily, work-wise, which was good. So, Dragon, thank you for your support. Edkin, thank you. Dodzor, yeah. Christian Apologetics, thanks for the educational videos. Yeah, please do. They hear it. Yeah, I should actually put in these, what do you call them? These little timestamps. So, guys, I will call it a night here, right, guys? Thanks. Call it a night. We'll see you guys next time. Have a good time. So, hopefully, I will see you on Thursday with Adam if all goes well. And hopefully, next week, I'll be on another show with Sneakers Corner, with Mal from Sneakers Corner. And, guys, take care. Any questions, drop in the chat. I will drop in the comments below later. All the resources linked in the chat. Okay, all my resources linked in the chat. St. Grinch, Sergeant Grinch, welcome back. And yeah, guys, take care. Till next time. Okay, see you all. Goodbye.